Hi, everybody. It's the year 2024. I mean, we made it to the year 2024 with all the dreams and all the goals that we have, And I just want you to know that all the dreams and all the goals that you have, it's not by chance that you have them. They were implanted in you for a reason. And that is why we, as Complacency Learning, make sure that we get the people out there from different career fields, more like the experts, to come and share with us the information that we need to further move forward towards our dreams and our goals. And as always, I'm your host, Nibo Chibase, and welcome to another amazing episode of Complacency Learning. On today's amazing episode, more like the first episode of the year 2024, we are joined by a very by an individual who's very passionate in education. He moved from the space of what you call this of law of being a lawyer into becoming an educator, and it seems to be something that he's loved the most more than what he was doing before. And in today's amazing episode, ladies and gentlemen, sit tight and put your hands together for Maremo Matlou as he comes to share with us an amazing journey it has been for him to be where he is, and the passion that he has, and the love as well that he has for teaching. Hi, Maremo. It's a brand new day, and welcome to another amazing episode of Complacency Learning. How's life treating you?
Thank you so much, Ndebo, for having me. It is an absolute pleasure to be on this platform, and I think it's long overdue. Life is treating me well. I think I've gotten to a point where I have come to understand the mechanisms of how I believe life works, and it's made life a whole lot simpler for me.
Nice, nice. So, before we proceed, do you mind telling us more about yourself, your qualifications, and what it is that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Okay, so I am Maremo Robert Matlou. My qualifications, I'm a qualified attorney. I also have my PGCE, which allows me to teach. I worked as a lawyer for 2 years. I completed my articles. Thereafter, I left the profession of law and I became a teacher. Currently, I work at one of the top boys' schools in South Africa, St. David's, and I am a EMS teacher, business studies teacher, and I'm a house director for one of the houses, and I coach rugby, I coach soccer, and I assist with mentorship.
Nice. You got a lot of things going, eh? So,
As human beings should.
yeah, you should. I mean, it's one way of living, hey. I mean, we are always busy, right? So, and speaking of being busy, I know that a lot of people they're moving from education into studying, I mean, into becoming lawyers. Like they study law while they're teachers. So, and I see you are doing the opposite. So you actually moved from being a lawyer into a teacher. Like, if you don't mind me asking, what inspired you to do that? What was the main motive for you to actually do such a move?
It wasn't inspiration. I think it was a situation at a particular point in time that I found myself in. So when you leave high school, I believe, and if it were up to me, that all learners should be forced to take a gap year. It should be compulsory, right? Being expected to, in grade 9, you are asked to pick subjects that determine the career choice you are going to make in matric, and you're not even allowed to vote, you're not allowed to drink alcohol, you're not allowed to drive a car, yet we are expecting you to make these difficult decisions. And you do the subjects, and when you get to matric, you start to listen to what different people are saying to you. My mom and my aunts were educators, and you see the teachers at school and you reason this is not something I want to be. I did public speaking, I did debating when I was in school, I was the head prefect. So everybody would say, you speak so well, you should think about going into law, you should think about going into politics. Nowhere. It's the same skills, right? A lawyer speaks all the
Mm,
time, politician
mm,
speaks all the time, and a teacher
mm,
speaks all the time. But nowhere are my speaking abilities good enough to be an educator. And nobody saw it that way. And my brother, who's one of my biggest role models, also did law. So then I remember when I was applying for university, I told everybody that I'm going to do investment management. And when I was applying, I was alone. And I call these moments of clarity. And in that moment, I decided to study BCom law. And I loved studying law. Every time people ask me, why did I leave the law to start teaching, they always expect me to say that I didn't like law. I loved it. I loved studying law. I love the rules, the mechanisms, and the thought process that you have to have in order to be a good lawyer. And I started working. And in my final year, I had a vision of what I wanted to do with my life. And that vision does not coincide with being a lawyer, but you go with the flow. It's time to do your article. So I applied for my articles. And fortunately, I worked at one of the top law firms in Sandton, Norton Rose, Fulbright. And what happens is you have 4 rotations. So my first rotation was in telecoms and privacy. And after 3 months, I was like, nope, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And then I went to Cape Town, I did education. I'm like, I can do this. I can be an advocate. After 3 months, I was like, I can do this for the rest of my life. And then I came back to Joburg and I worked in the banking and financing team. And it's quite hectic. And so as a lawyer, you're not allowed breaks. Let's say you're working on something quite hectic, you're not allowed breaks. So if I'm having a tea break and my boss wants something and she catches me drinking tea, she's probably not going to be too happy with me. But what you were allowed were smoke breaks, and everybody took them. So I started smoking to get breaks in between my day. And I remember there's a day I arrived at work at 8 a.m. and I worked from 8 until 2 without taking a break because the agreement my boss wanted was urgent. And then I went downstairs to have a smoke. And as I was having the smoke, a thought popped into my mind. Is this what we are going to do for the rest of our life? Right? We are going to take smoke breaks to escape work, but while we're taking the smoke break, all we can think about is work. And I said, no. And then something said, so what are we going to do? And I was like, quit. And quit and do what? Quit and teach. And in that moment, in that parking lot, I took out my phone, I Googled my old high school, I called them, and I was like, can I please speak to one of the deputies? Hadn't spoken to them in 7 years. And I said to them, I would like to come teach. And as they say, the rest then was history. So it wasn't any inspiration. It wasn't something I thought about for a long period of time. I was literally having a smoke break, and I did not like the fact that during the smoke break, I'm still thinking about work. I did not feel like I was being meaningful. And in that moment, I made the decision.
So basically, you felt like you didn't have life.
It felt like my life wasn't serving a higher purpose. Right,
So,
because working on agreements, you're making companies rich. You don't see the
mm,
tangible benefits of what it is that you are actually doing. And other lawyers might argue it differently, but I'm a people's person, and I like to constantly interact with people, share ideas, challenge their views, and impart knowledge that even if they don't use today, one day could become applicable to a specific situation they found themselves in. And as a lawyer, that's you're doing. You're drafting agreements, you're sitting in meetings, you're drafting opinions for clients, and there's no human interaction and human development.
So you mentioned that you feel that it's very important for learners to take a gap year because at that point where they are required to make the subject choice, it's that time where they're not what you call this responsible enough to know what they actually want. Okay. So in terms of doing that, what about because I know that some people when they think about taking a gap year, they start to think, oh, what if now I become lazy to go back to school? What if it becomes challenging for me when I get back there? What if my brain is no longer on that graspy moment? So in terms of taking that gap year, how do you suggest that one do it in a way to be strategic?
So for me, I think all of us have many interests in our lives.
Mm,
We hardly ever get to explore. That's the first thing. The second thing is that many of us don't know what the careers we want to do actually entail. Secondly, we don't know the vast number of careers that actually exist. Right. So if I look back when I was in high school to now, we have influencers, we have people who are making millions off YouTube, you have people who are software designers because that's where the world has moved to. I was in Zara the other day and they've got a self checkout. Somebody must maintain that, somebody must design that system. And those are things that did not exist back when we were in high school. And we have kids in high school now that don't know those things. And so for me, in that gap year, one, you're taking a break from learning. It's been 12 years of learning. Then you're expected to go to varsity, spend another 4 years, and then immediately start working. It sooner or later, people are going to break, and I think it accounts for the burnout that people experience throughout their whole lives, that you've never actually had that break. So for me, it would be seek out your interests. If you are interested in being a musician, then go job shadow a musician. Go ask to join the YFM academy, find that which you are interested in and go see. And then you might realize that I actually don't like this, right? Had I taken a gap and spent 2 months in a law firm, I would have realized that this is not something I would have been able to do for the rest of my life. then I would have perhaps volunteered at a school. I would have volunteered at a nonprofit organization. So you're not just sitting during this gap year. You are working, you are taking internships, learnerships, and it would be something I would also encourage companies to do, to say each company must designate at least 10 spots for matriculants to come in and work in the organization for 3 months so that they can see if this is something that they want to participate in. I spend a lot of time talking to learners who are in varsity. Most of them are dropping out. Most of them failed their courses. You ask them, what is the catalyst for all of this? Because in high school, you were such a top student. It comes down to burnout. It comes down to doing something that their grades allowed them to do, that their parents forced them to do, that they themselves were not comfortable with doing. So for some people, the gap year will be a rest. For other people, it's figuring out who am I? What do I like? Who am I independent of this uniform that I'm forced to wear? Right? Who am I independent of the comparisons we've made with our friends about lawyers make the money, accountants are acknowledged in our profession, and nobody really cares about being a nurse, being a teacher, being a plumber, right? They make more money than we make, but these are fields that we don't allow learners to explore when they're in high school because we want to create a certain standard and we want learners to do certain things, which I don't think is beneficial for all of them.
So basically they're limited, like their skills and stuff, yeah. So now, after you've moved from the law firm into the teaching space, right? The education industry. I know that everywhere there's challenges. You had challenges there in the law firm. Now there's challenges that you're facing right now, I'm sure, right? So as a teacher, what are the challenges that you're facing and how are you dealing with them?
Okay, so yeah, it's hectic. So let's start with my old
Mm,
school because I used to work at a government, right? And the first challenge for me is
mm.
the admin. I
No
and it's
teacher
something,
likes admin, eh?
but it's not the same at the private school I work for now.
Mm,
Government expects us to go through such an extensive administrative process
mm,
for information that I personally believe is unnecessary. And so being a teacher itself is not an exhausting job. But when you are constantly being asked to do things that add on, but are of no benefit to the learners, it becomes too much. And I think if you speak to teachers who work in the public space, that's what they're going to say to you, that I must spend time doing lesson plans for my IDSO who's only going to come once to check them. I may never refer to them for the rest of the year. Why? Because knowledge lives in my head, and in other professions, you're not expected to do that. No doctor is expected to sit down and come up with plans as to how they're going to treat each and every one of their clients. The client comes in, they figure out what's wrong, they prescribe medication. Accountants treat each case on a case-to-case basis based on the company, based on the individual. But as a teacher, you expect to do lesson plans for the whole year that leave me with little flexibility as to what I'm going to do in my class. Right? I'll give you a perfect example. I once walked into my class and I was about to start my lesson, and the kids were like, "Sir, we can't work today." I was like, "Why?" They're like, "It's Ricky Rick's funeral." And so you can teach, but we can tell you now we are going to be on our phones watching Ricky Rick's funeral because he was the youth's president. And so I canceled my lesson. I went on my laptop, went on YouTube, and I put on the Ricky Rick funeral. Some of them cried, but you can't ask me to have a lesson plan to account for moments such as that. And so for me, the first one was the administrative toll. The second one is building boundaries with learners, right? I remember one of my learners went through such a traumatic experience and it broke me. And towards the end of the year, we went out with colleagues and we were having drinks. And one of them said to me, "Maremo, you get too emotionally involved with your learners to the extent that you have nothing more to give at the end of the year." So I've had to learn that when they're at school, I can pour everything I have into them. But as soon as I leave those gates, I need to be able to detach myself from them so that I don't carry that burden at home and it doesn't affect my other interactions with my loved ones or with my friends. And then the last thing is making peace with the fact that your remuneration will never be sufficient for the work you do. You look at people and even the way parents treat you, they treat you as if you are a entry level individual, and sometimes I sit there and you deal with these parents and you're like, you do know I'm more qualified than you, you know? But to
yeah.
them, you are there to provide a service and they don't
Mm,
understand how important the service is that you are providing. And so at times I would grapple with that, you know, when your mind
mm.
goes, if you were still a lawyer, you'd be earning this much.
Yeah.
You now you are earning this much. And
Yeah.
that, you know, I
Mm,
had to get to a point where I said
mm,
the benefits are intangible.
mm,
And the fact that society doesn't
mm,
recognize what you are doing and then are
mm,
compensating sufficiently, that's not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on the profession or the work that you do. It's simply the
mm,
standards that society has set. So yeah, for me, it would be the administration. It would be not be
mm,
getting too attached to the learners and being
mm.
comfortable that my remuneration will match my efforts.
Even though your remuneration was cut short, you seem to be happier in education than you were in the law firm. Because I mean, the way you're so much deeply involved in the space of education, I mean, you are putting these ideas that I think can serve as a solution. And right now, also, I'm also thinking at the same time that why is this man not in the cabinet? Why is he not serving as the Minister of Education or something? Because it seems that you are familiar with the problems that we're experiencing and how to deal with them. Because I mean, in one of my episodes, right, I asked one of my guests whose focus lies mostly on eradicating poverty, right? So he does research a lot. He's more like a researcher. So I asked him if he thinks that um, poverty will end. He said no. And then I asked him why. And then he said to me that the people that are trying to come up with the solutions are not the ones experiencing it. You understand? So the same is happening with the space of education. I mean, now they're sending us, like you said, that we do the lesson plans and everything. Okay. For somebody who's only gonna come once to come and what you call this? To come and check them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right.
Do
So in doing that, I feel like it's just more another way of just, I don't know, of just giving teachers something to do, because people out there, they feel like we are not working as much as we should. We have holidays, we have all these kind of things. But regardless, but I mean, those people that are telling us to actually do those what you call this IDS or the QMS and stuff, they're not the ones that are teaching in class. Do you understand what I'm saying? And if you also look around, principals have moved from teaching in class to actually be heading the school. And that time they have no idea what we are really facing in classes. They faced whatever they faced when it was their time in class, but the world keeps on changing. You understand? So I'm really happy that you actually shared such a wonderful piece of information with us. Okay, so now in looking at the teachers, like as a whole, what's the biggest problem that they're facing right now, like, in
Ooh,
your opinion?
that's quite an interesting question. I think teachers are underappreciated,
Mm,
one. And two, I think teachers are not protected,
mm, mm,
right? You work in an environment where you are dealing with teenagers, you are dealing with learners who are still
mm,
developing, and it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot
mm,
of effort to invest in those learners. And
mm,
when something goes wrong, we're not protected,
mm,
right? So you're almost on a knife edge to
mm,
not do anything wrong, especially when it comes to learners,
mm,
right?
mm,
Because learners can do anything they want,
mm,
right? A learner can assault a teacher, right? And
mm,
they'll get a
mm,
hearing, they'll get expelled, and then placed in a different
mm,
school. If a teacher retaliates in that moment, your teaching career is over.
mm, mm,
And so we are living in an age where learners know this, right? Learners become
mm,
smart. Once they see that,
mm,
oh, okay, if I do this, I only get suspended once, and they begin to push boundaries. And
mm,
for me, I think that's very difficult for teachers, how to manage a classroom in this new landscape where learners are constantly pushing your boundaries,
mm,
trying to get you to break. You know,
mm,
you
mm,
must bite your
mm,
tongue, you must
mm,
walk out of
mm,
the classroom. And when you do those things, it's said that you don't know how to manage a class,
mm,
right? Said, what were you doing in varsity? And in varsity, you're not being taught to deal with the outliers.
mm,
And so I think one of the biggest challenges is that if our education system was functioning properly, right, you would have specialized teachers who know how to deal with learners who are struggling,
mm,
right? So there are
mm,
learners, for instance, who shouldn't be in mainstream school.
mm,
Okay, so now I'm in a class, so we can imagine this class setting, right? I have a
mm,
learner who shouldn't be in mainstream school, and in our government schools, we don't do all of these assessments. So I could have a learner who's got dyscalculia, I have a learner who's
mm,
dyslexic, I've got a learner who's on the autism spectrum.
mm,
In the same classroom, I have a learner who's got behavioral issues, right? And then I've
mhm,
got the rest of my learners, and I'm being asked to manage that classroom. It's not feasible, it's not
mm,
possible. Right.
mm,
And when I break, then it becomes a weakness on my part. And so I think we underappreciate it,
mm,
right? The work that we have to go through, the care that we have to provide to those kids is immense. And if we don't reach that balance very soon, as you keep
mm,
witnessing, right, the
mm,
exodus of the teachers who are leaving South Africa to go teach in China, to go teach in Vietnam, to go teach in the Middle East, right? And when I talk to them, one of the biggest reasons is there is a certain level of work-life balance in those other countries that does not
mm,
particularly exist in South Africa.
mm. And I have to say that, teaching is an amazing career. It's an amazing job.
Right.
And the fact that a lot of people are staying, well, some might not be staying here in the country to teach here, but they are staying in the field, within the field of education. So I feel from what you're saying also, I feel that what throws people off is the way that education is managed. Like you said yourself now, teachers are not protected. Teachers are expected to be calm in situations that are not even calm. Even when learners are fighting with weapons, you still have to go be there, and get attacked by those weapons that they're using and stuff, and at the end of the day, we're all about making a difference through education. We want to make sure that we build a generation that is full of individuals that are willing to change the world for better, So so
And
sorry.
for me, another problem, right, is that we are teaching an outdated curriculum, you know?
Mm,
So
mm, mm,
imagine I'm sitting in a
mm.
class and a learner can say to you, so everything you're teaching me, I can learn on YouTube. Why am I coming to school?
Yeah. And they do ask those questions.
They know,
Yeah.
and what am I meant to respond to that? You
Uh,
know, learner
mm,
who says, sir, don't
mm,
computers do the work that you are teaching me now in accounting?
yeah.
And you're like, they probably do. And they're like, so
Mm,
why am I learning about coding? Why am I not learning about entrepreneurship? Why am I
mm,
not learning being a YouTuber and
mm,
how to monetize the skill that
mm,
I have without necessarily having to go to varsity? Because the
mm,
truth of the matter is, our universities cannot accommodate every single
mm,
matriculant who is going to pass now in
mm,
2 weeks' time, right? They can't
mm,
accommodate. So what must
mm.
happen to the rest, right? We have not
That's
taught them
them. Mm,
individuals who are entrepreneurs who can just take your phone, put it on a
mm,
pedestal and record
mm,
yourself. And from that,
mm,
you can share knowledge with the world and you can become an influence and all of these different
mm,
professions that now exist that I believe the education system is not preparing our learners for. We look at,
mm,
you were mentioning earlier, before we started the call, that there are many people who are struggling with depression, who are struggling with mental illness. Why?
mm, mm,
Wellness not a subject that is taught at school? Why is
mm,
meditation not something that we are teaching our kids how to
mm,
identify are not okay? We
mm,
just give them the
mm,
information. We don't give them the
mm,
skills to cope
mm,
with those different challenges that exist in the world today. We don't teach them how to take care of what they post on social media, right? It's one of the things I always say to
mm,
my learners. I say,
mm,
if I was to go onto your social media and
mm,
I was an employer, would I hire you?
mm.
Right, I say this to my grade 10s or my grade 11s. And some of them you can see on their faces that, I'd be in a bit of trouble,
Yeah.
but these skills that we have taught to our learners, right? We are
Mm,
teaching skills that they're never going to use. And so for me, I think that's also a very big challenge
mm,
that our
mm,
curriculum is severely outdated. And we lose kids in the classroom because the content
mm,
that we are teaching them is not preparing them for the world that we are currently living in. I mean, look at the
mm,
format, how schools operate, right? If you
mm,
go into a corporate space, they now want open working desk areas. They
mm,
want the walls to be see-through. They want the
mm,
CEO to sit amongst the people. and you walk
mm,
into schools and kids still sit in rows.
mm, Oosh.
Right? You walk in
Mm,
school, kids are still governed by bells. Right? At
mm,
varsity, there's no bell. At work, there's no bell. But at schools,
mm,
that's how our learners. And
mm,
so that discrepancy for kids who are now living in an age where they have so much information so quickly
mm.
poses a challenge in the classroom.
Well, I have to say that kids are problem solvers, eh? The reason why I say so is because of if you really listen to them, you'll see that they really have ideas, you know. Speaking of things that are not taught in school, I remember when I was teaching in one of the high schools, somewhere in Lodium there, right? So this kid, I was teaching them mass literacy that time. So this one of the learners asked me, "Sir, why is it that you as teachers always encourage us to go for certain career fields that the what you call this tertiary institutions are offering, and you don't even encourage us going for entrepreneurship. You know, like if we have to speak about entrepreneurship, I mean entrepreneurship now, it it does not only focus on you getting a job, but also it provides job opportunities to other people out there. You know, so with all these things that are not being taught in school, right? So how do you feel that they should be implemented into the curriculum? Or how do you like what do you think should be done in order for the curriculum to change? So instead of teaching them outdated things, we teach them the things that are up to date.
I think it needs a complete overhaul,
Needs to
right?
complete, yeah.
Think we as educators need to sit down and we need to
Mm,
analyze what should we be teaching our kids. And the problem is
mm,
in your private schools and your private institutions, some of these things are being done.
mm, mm,
So where I work, we're teaching our kids robotics,
mm, mm,
right? I work when you're in grade 8, our kids learn how to swim, basic life skill, right?
mm,
Adults don't have right now. When you hear
mm,
about in KZN, when you hear about all of these different natural disasters that we are facing, majority of our
mm,
population do those things. My school, we had an entrepreneurial day for grade sevens.
mm,
You know, those are the things that are necessary. And
mm,
your affluent schools are able to do
mm,
those. And so who's
mm,
left but the marginalized ones who are dependent
mm,
on government for these lessons, right? Give you a
mm,
simple, every grade at my school, from high school, so from grade 8 to grade 11, every year you go on a camp,
mm,
right? The camp that you go on in grade 9 is an 11-day hike in the Drakensberg,
mm,
right? So you can imagine the life skills that you are learning from having to be reliant on yourself and other people in a mountain for 11 days.
mm, mm,
Right. So it's not always curriculum based. You're sitting in a classroom.
mm,
It's vital life skills that our learners need to have. I work at a school that has 3 psychologists and a social worker.
mm,
The government school that I worked at, we only had one social worker
mm.
for 1,500 learners.
Yeah,
Right. So
that's
it's
a lot.
those little,
Mm,
yes, those little improvements that our education system needs. But in order for that to happen, we need a complete overhaul. Right. We
mm,
are asking teachers to teach, and it's nothing against it. I taught history for a while,
mm,
and I live with my sister-in-law, as I told you, she was doing matric this year. And I said to her,
mm,
who's Chris Beatty? And she had no idea.
mm, mm. Yeah.
Right. And I said, Steve Biko said this. I'm like, who's Steve Biko? And she had no idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm,
We are going, she gets to vote this year. And to her, the construct of the ANC, she doesn't care about it. Right. She's
mm,
like, I don't know why these people are as relevant as what you are making them out to be.
mm,
If I were to ask about World War II, she'd have no recollection.
mm,
Okay. But if I asked her how to edit a YouTube video, she can do it for me in less than an hour.
mm,
Right. And for me, those are the discrepancies that exist that we
mm,
need to come and say to ourselves, what are the things that we think are important for our learners to know? Right.
mm,
You go to a country like Germany and you compare their history to ours. In Germany, they've been very intentional about ensuring that their kids learn and know about the effects of what they did under Hitler. But it's
mm,
intentional. Everywhere you go, there's a reminder. Why? So that they can never do it again.
mm,
Right? If you look at our history syllabus, we teach a whole bunch of things, and our history is just hidden and brushed away somewhere in there.
mm.
so that we can say
mm,
we did it. And it's those type of things that we need to
mm,
evaluate, interrogate. You look at a subject like arts and culture, nothing against it.
mm,
I can't draw to save my life.
mm,
But for
mm,
2 years, I was doing badly at a subject because it required a skill that I naturally did not possess.
mm.
And
Yes.
so for those type of things, that some of those subjects we can alter a little bit and allow us to then
Mm,
introduce things like robotics, to include things like wellness
mm,
and your mental health. For me, mental health should be a subject.
mm,
You know,
mm,
Health
mm,
should be able to come to me and say, sir, compared to last week and now, something has changed
mm,
in my mental,
mm, mm,
you know, but they
mm,
can't do that. We are the ones who identify. We are the ones who say,
mm,
you're not the same way you used to be. But
mm,
secondly, I think the way we train our teachers also needs to change, right? So I remember there's a learner who was quite depressed at my high school, and she had missed the test, and then she was
mm,
supposed to
mm,
write it comes to me and says, sir, I'm not going to write this test, I'm going home. Because if I write this test, I'm going to get there, I'm going to write my name, and I'm going to sleep. And I remember I went to my HOD and I said, this child's not going to write, she's depressed. And my HOD is like, I don't care. The
mm,
rules are rules, and she must come in right. We've all
mm,
been depressed, And in my mind, I'm like, no, we haven't all been depressed. We've all had
mm,
low moods. We've all had difficult moments, but
mm.
depression, we haven't all been
It's
depressed.
something else. Mm,
A completely different thing. But
mm,
teachers aren't aware of that.
mm,
Teachers aren't aware that a child can make money from being an influencer,
mm,
robotics, graphic design. We don't know these things. So we
mm,
also are preparing kids for a world that no longer exists. So I think the
mm,
education system needs a complete overhaul. How we train our teachers also needs a complete overhaul to ensure
mm.
that we are preparing our learners to be functional human beings in society.
Mm, mm. No,
Right.
I agree with you on that one. Like definitely, I really do agree with you. I feel like it's a good approach, that actually deserves to be, given a what you call this, a try at least, if you can sit and implement it and see how far we go with it, right? So in terms of you and personal teaching space with the learners and stuff, how do you prepare them for the future that lies ahead of them?
So I
Mm,
spend most of my time with my learners. So
mm,
So during breaks, I'm walking around, I'm on the
mm.
fields, I'm talking to the kids,
Mm,
because, and it's just how life operates as
mm,
adults. We
mm,
spend majority of our time complaining. We spend
mm,
majority of our time gossiping about the learners, about other teachers, about the institution itself. And for me, that is not worthwhile. So I spend majority of my time at school with the kids,
mm,
right? So that's the second thing is that I set the example.
mm,
Okay,
mm,
give you a simple example. When I started teaching, you're always shouting at kids for not wearing their blazers,
mm,
right? And so I decided,
mm,
and you say to the kids, like, why aren't you wearing a blazer? They're like, sir, you have a choice. You have options. You can decide what you
mm,
want to today. I don't have that choice. And it's hot today. So I'm not going to
mm.
wear my blazer. You're not wearing it. I was like, okay, cool. And so I started wearing a uniform to school. Every day I wore the exact same thing.
Mm,
And so when I ran into a kid and they're like, sir, I'm like, you can't complain. I'm wearing my blazer.
mm,
Go wear your,
mm,
and I've moved across to a new school and I do the same thing. I wear same thing every day, different color
mm,
suits, but it's the same thing. It's a three-piece suit each and every day.
mm,
The only thing I have that kids aren't allowed to have is a beard. And that's what I say to
mm,
them. Everything else is
mm,
exactly what is expected of you to do. And I think that's very important for us to
mm,
do. When I started teaching, I stopped smoking. Because if I'm going
mm.
to say to kids, don't smoke, they can't say, but sir, you do it, right? So it's those things that I've had
Yeah.
I've had to do, that I must live a life that I expect my kids to live. And then the
Mm,
third, that I share personal experiences all the time,
mm,
right? I'll tell my kids I was depressed. This is
mm,
what depression felt like to me.
mm,
I used to be a functioning alcoholic. In corporate, we drink all the time and we think it's
mm,
acceptable.
mm.
You know,
Yeah.
night,
Mm,
I would come home, I would either have a beer, I'd have a glass of wine, I'd have whiskey, and this was normal. And
mm,
then on days you go out and you drink a whole lot, you feel terrible on Saturday, you recover on
mm,
Sunday, you start work on Monday.
mm,
So I share those experiences with them all the time in class,
mm,
my own personal experiences. But two, in the way I teach the content, I challenge
mm,
their stereotypes, and I
mm,
challenge the way they think. and the way they view things. So, for example, if in business studies we are dealing with organizational culture, and then I'll say, okay, let's discuss what is organizational culture, what is the culture at our school, right? And then they'll tell you, like, okay, so now you're going to leave the school. So let's move from the school and let's go to university, where you are going to have hippies, where you are going to have people who don't believe in the same things you believe in, who did not grow up and who did not attend a Catholic school. How are you going to deal with those things? And then we share back and forth. But I'm constantly trying to push the boundary, to challenge them to think, to be critical, and to constantly question their own beliefs. Because I think as human beings, we believe because I believe something, it has to be the truth, right? But if you go onto the internet, you can find information to support almost every theory that exists. If we go to the internet now, we will find a whole bunch of information that still believes the world is flat. And so our job as as educators, to shine light on their opinions and they believe, say, are you sure? Right? Even if you are sure, can you make room that it won't always be like this? And so for me, that's what I do. I spend time with them so I can know them and I know how to interact with them, because you can't treat kids the same, right? On a sporting field, I'm a coach, I love it. On a sporting field, kid who, if I yell at him, he's going to do better. But there's another kid, if I yell at him, his confidence is just going to go down. And so the arm around to be like, you got this, like, what's wrong today? Another one needs, hey, come on, wake up. And he gets, and then two, to share personal experiences so they can see that you are human too, right? When you say to a kid that I used to be a functioning alcoholic, they all just, yes. I'm saying never start drinking. No benefit to it. Nobody has ever said this experience was made better because I was drinking. And I say, think about it. Tell me. You're grade 11, and I know some of you have been drinking. Tell me one experience that has been made better by the fact that you had been drinking. So it's those type of things. And then lastly, you interrogate their beliefs.
No, that's nice. I have to say that you're an interesting person, and your learners are actually they're lucky to have you as their teacher, because I mean you are doing more than just teaching the curriculum, basically, from what I'm hearing from you. And I'm sure there's people that would like to actually learn a lot more about you. So to those that would like to learn more about you, where can they do that?
So they can follow me on Instagram, Maremo Matlou, Facebook, Maremo Matlou, LinkedIn, Maremo Matlou, and then very soon, as they'll see on one of those platforms, I'll be starting my YouTube channel, and so they can follow me on that platform as well. I think we spoke about this offline, that for 2 years I disappeared, and in those 2 years, life gets quite difficult, and one of the biggest things I was grappling with, why is this happening to me? And when you are caught up in that mindset, it's just this negativity mindset where you can't even acknowledge the good things that are happening in your life. And I got to a point where I realized that we are not in control of what happens in life. If you evaluate the dreams that you had when you were 18 years old and how your life looks now, it's completely different. At 18 years old, you did not believe you'd have a YouTube channel, right? I don't even think we stood the concept.
I didn't even think about it. Yeah.
You
It
get
didn't
what I
even
mean?
cross my mind at that time. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't bargain for the fact that I'd be married by now. If you look at I did not bargain that I'd be a teacher. I bargained I'd be a lawyer. I did, and I'd ever work at a private school. And so I got to a point, and if I could leave people with something, it's this, right? That you are not in control of life. Okay, you are one individual in a cosmos where things are happening that you have absolutely no control over, right? A war starts in Russia, it affects the petrol price in South Africa, right? Our president may say something that affects the South African economy, right? The ambassador of the United States says something about South Africa, the rand suffers. Not in your control, right? The increase that I'm getting at work this year, not in my control. And so the question becomes then, what is within your control, right? And those thoughts, your words, and your actions. And so for me, to help me to recover, I've surrendered. I've surrendered to the fact that there are things that are outside of my control. I'm not going to worry about them. I'm not going to be upset about load shedding. I'm not going
mm,
to be upset about the crime rate in South Africa. There's nothing I can do about it. Okay, so what
mm,
am I in control of? My thoughts, my words, my actions. And so that's what I spend my time doing, fine-tuning my thoughts, making sure that my words match that which I think, and that my actions speak louder than both of those.
mm. Nice, nice. So, that's a wonderful piece of information. And I don't know if you would like to add on to the next question, because I wanted to ask you, uh, what it is that you would like to leave with our learners and the parents, as we begin this year. A lot of learners are anxious about going to the new grade, going to the new phase. They thinking, yo, do I have what it takes to be there? What if I got here by chance? What if I stay here and then I fail? How am I gonna take it? So for them to stay positive, what piece of information would you give them?
So first I'll start with the parents,
Mm, mm,
right? And hard truth,
mm,
okay? Your kids are here to live an independent life,
mm,
okay? You decided to bring them here.
mm,
They are an individual that is separate from you.
mm,
Your responsibility is to equip them with as much information and knowledge as possible. It is to provide them with a roof over their head to ensure that they are mentally, physically, spiritually, and physically healthy.
mm,
Everything else from that point is their own choice.
mm,
One of the biggest gripes I have is when it comes to subject choice. And you'll hear a kid in grade 9 tell you, I don't want to do physics. And only in grade 11 are we able to convince the parents that their child should drop physics. Why? Because in the parent's mind, their dream is for their child to become a doctor, to become an engineer. And I'm saying to parents that we are hurting our children by forcing them to do things that we think are good for them and not
mm,
listening to what they think is good for themselves. And so
mm,
as we go into 2024, let's become conscious parents, right? Who spend time talking to our kids, who spend time
mm,
observing what are their interests and what do they like, and being surprised by what they can come up with. Because if we look at the world as it exists now, if all parents were conventional, then we wouldn't have
mm,
YouTube, we wouldn't
mm,
have Amazon, we wouldn't
mm,
have this. And so we must allow our kids to be their
mm,
own authentic self and to
mm,
experience life themselves. Because two things
mm,
is going to happen, right? One, your child is going to become extremely frustrated with you,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
they're going to become very resentful that you are forcing me to do things that I don't want to do,
mm,
right?
mm,
Secondly, they're not going to thrive and they're not going to become successful.
mm,
And also to the parents, I need you to realize that school is not the end all and be all. High school, it's not the end all and be all. And so the
mm,
marks that your child is going to get, for me, should simply be sufficient for them to be able to have the option to go to university, right? I'm 30 years old. When I apply for a job, they don't ask for my matric results,
mm.
you
But the
know?
Department
And,
of Education does, eh?
hey, oh, when you, yeah, me,
Yeah,
when, who cares, right? You have a degree, you've proven yourself.
yeah,
A friend in varsity who struggled so much,
mm,
right? And then she left, and at varsity, she studied psychology. Do we teach psychology at high school? No. She
mm,
graduated cum laude, got her
mm,
master, and today she's a very
mm,
competent psychologist. You know, and I'm
mm,
saying to parents, that could be your child who you are
mm,
hoping to take physics, to take maths core, accounting, and they're struggling. But by the time they get to university, because the subject choices and the careers they can go into become so much broader, they will have the opportunity to shine.
mm,
And to the learners, I would like to say that you are capable. We are all born with everything we need to
mm,
succeed.
mm,
Everything. It is inherent in you that you
mm,
have everything you need in order to be able to succeed. Okay. And success isn't a once off thing, right? Because that's what we believe, right? That, yeah,
mm,
I was there in high school,
mm.
right? And then what?
Yeah.
Right? Being headway in high school doesn't pay the bills now, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
success is not just what you are doing now in school. Okay.
mm,
Success is holistic. And if I was to say one thing to the high school students is that success is four prone. And these are the four things I need you to concentrate on in order to make sure you are a well-rounded, successful individual. Firstly, your physical health.
Mm,
Okay, you need to exercise, you need to eat right, you need to be an active individual. Our bodies are not made to be stagnant. You playing PlayStation, sitting on that TV, eating your McDonald's is not good for your body.
mm,
It will catch up to you, right? So you either pay the price now or you pay the price later, but a price will have to be paid for your physical health.
mm,
Secondly, you must take care of your mental well-being, right? There's so much that's going into your brain. Social media is
mm,
built on the premise,
mm,
right? It is created in such a manner that they keep you on your device. It is by design,
mm,
right? And so you must take care of your mental health. And how do you do that? You take time to yourself, you meditate, you journal, okay? And you spend time in nature. Then you must take care of your mind. So read, grow, challenge your viewpoint. That's the beauty of being at school, right?
mm,
Most of you don't like school, right? You say school isn't relevant. Okay, but you have to do it anyway. So do your best,
mm, mm,
right? Grow your mind and push yourself. You know,
mm,
don't sit back and say, this is not something I want to do, so I'm just 30%, right? That's
mm,
not somebody who cares about their mind or who cares about themselves.
mm,
Sometimes we are forced to do things that we do not want to do,
mm,
okay?
mm,
But even in that situation, still do your best. So grow your mind. Listen
mm,
to you podcasts, right?
mm,
On Instagram, follow the right people,
yeah, mm,
right? Social media has lots of good to offer you, right? On my Instagram and on my
mm,
Twitter, my restrictions is at its highest, right? So I don't see any information that is not beneficial to me. The people I
mm,
follow add to my life. That's intentional, right? So I don't get lost in things that are not of
mm,
benefit. Lastly, you must take care of your soul. You are a spiritual
mm,
being,
mm,
right? So I'm not saying be Christian. I'm not saying be a Muslim. I'm not saying go to church. I'm saying you are a spiritual being and you need to find a way to nourish your spiritual self. If that is
mm,
through meditating, if that is through doing yoga, if you have your crystals and your chakras, or it is going to
mm,
church, is praying
mm,
daily, do it, right? Because you need something to keep you steady when life gets
mm,
difficult, right? I'm saying
mm,
all of these things, you take care of your physical health, your mental health, you take care of your
mm,
mind. All of those will get you to a certain point. But it comes a
mm,
time just like, do I have more in me? And that's where your
mm,
spirituality will carry you through. So for me,
mm.
take care of your physical health, your mental health, take care of your mind, keep it sharp, keep it focused, and take care of your spiritual well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very wonderful, straight to the core and said with passion and everything. Like you're, like I said, hey, you are very passionate with education. And as just as I said before, it's an honor to have you on today's episode. It has been an honor. You have no idea what your message is doing to me right now as I'm listening to you. And then also you have no idea what it's gonna do to those out there that are still to listen to it, you know. But in all honesty, I really wanna say thank you for you to come in a very busy world where everybody's just worried about what's going on in their lives, and for you to just, dedicate some time to come and share with us, about what's happening in education and how to better prepare our children for the future that lies ahead of them. It's really amazing. So I really want to say thank you. Although I cannot thank you enough, I really want to say that your presence is highly appreciated.
Thank you so much, Devo, and thank you
Mhm.
for starting this platform. You know, I think many of us have brilliant ideas
Mhm.
and we have solutions to problems, but we never begin and we never put
Mhm.
them into action. And
Mhm.
so we can't help. And so thank you
Mhm.
for taking that leap and taking that step to
Mhm.
help our learners and to help our parents become better prepared for the world that we are currently living in.
No problem. Thank you so much. It is through people like you that I'm able to do this. But once again, thank you so much, and I wish you nothing but all the best for the year 2024 and all the years that are still to come. May you continue to be the best as you are, continue to touch those children's lives as best as you do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. Enjoy. All right, cheers. Bye. The world the world is full of very um the world is filled with very smart people with very bright ideas to actually help you and I get to where we want to be in future, more like reach our destinations the way we would like to reach them. You know, in the world of today, we know that information is everything. For you to learn, for you to evolve, you need to learn, because at the end of the day, without learning, you're not able to keep up with what's happening. And for you to keep up with what's happening, it's through learning. So, ladies and gentlemen, such a piece of information that Maremo has shared with us is not a piece of information that we just find everywhere, or it's not a piece of information that most are willing to share with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this message that he has shared with us, it resonates within your hearts and that it helps you better yourself in terms of career and everything that you hope for. Until next time, sit tight and enjoy the episode that we give to you.